Genetic determinism is the belief that genes determine everything about us, including our behavior. So, to understand why the idea of genetic determinism of behavior is wrong, we need to first understand some basic principles of how genes work and how they affect behavior. One thing to understand is nature versus nurture. So, nature is one side of a philosophical debate that attributes our behavior to genetics, and nurture is one side of a philosophical debate that attributed our behavior to environmental influences. So, learning experiences and social interactions affect how we use the genes we inherited, and this means that stress, including the stress of unhappy relationships with other people, may activate genes in unfortunate ways. So, genes at work. Who we are and how we behave depends on our characteristics or traits. Traits are physical or behavioral characteristic feature displayed by an individual. So they are who we are and how we behave. Proteins. Our bodies consist of billions of cells, each made up of molecules called proteins. Proteins are a string of long amino acids, which are the basic building material of organisms. Within each cell is a spherical central structure of a cell that contains the chromosomes called the nucleus. Chromosomes are condensed strands of DNA and associated molecules found in the nucleus of cells. And each nucleus has 23 pairs of chromosomes. Each chromosome is made up of a very long molecule of DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's a long molecule that encodes hereditary information coiled up to form chromosomes in the nucleus of cells. Organisms store this inherited information in the DNA molecules in genes. Genes are a length of DNA that encodes the information for making a protein. DNA is composed of nucleotides, which are 4 subunits of DNA that combine in different ways to specify which protein the cell would make. There are 4 different nucleotides that are abbreviated A, T, C, and G, and they stand for adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. And DNA consists of long stretches of these nucleotides. And the sequence of the nucleotides is not random. It specifies exactly which protein a cell will make. Proteins compose of smaller subunits called amino acids. There are 20 different amino acids, and cells make different proteins by varying the amino acids. And the definition of amino acids are subunits of proteins strung together in a sequence that form a particular protein molecule. The construction of our body and brain requires the proper production of thousands of proteins. Genes on chromosomes specify which amino acids will be joined together and in what order to make each particular protein. So, our mother and father give us slightly different recipes for each protein. Genes. The first cells started making proteins at fertilization, which is the fusion of sperm and egg. Genes with slightly different instructions for making the same protein are called alleles, and the definition of alleles is one of two or more different versions of a gene. And we get many different alleles because sometimes when eggs or sperm are made, the DNA from the parent is not copied properly. And this miscopied gene is called a mutation. And a mutation is a change in the nucleotide sequence of a gene as a result of an unfaithful replication. So, many mutations are minor and have no effect on how well the protein works, and we all carry some mutations. So, next, if we get a non-functional allele from one parent, the other allele usually spares us from harm. So you have 2 alleles for every single gene. A genotype is all the genetic information that one specific individual has inherited. and your genotype was set at the instant of fertilization, and for the rest of your life, your genotype will remain the same. On the other hand, we have phenotypes, which are the sum of an individual's physical characteristics at one particular time. And it includes your hair color, your intelligence, and your tendency to get the hiccups. But while your genotype never changes, your phenotype never stays the same, and your body changes every single day. Next, we can see how dominant and recessive alleles work in pea plants. So some genes influence phenotype more than others. We can use pea plants to show this. So some have purple flowers and some have white. And if you crossbreed a purple and a white one, offspring will have purple because each of the offspring has two different alleles of the gene, one from each parent. So one produces purple, but the other doesn't, and all flowers make some purple pigment, so the purple allele is dominant. The plants making purple flowers carry an allele for a protein needed to make a purple pigment, and the plants making white flowers have a different allele for this gene, and that protein doesn't work. An allele for a gene is dominant when it affects the individual's phenotype no matter what the other allele the individual carries for a gene, and a recessive allele affects the individual's phenotype only when it is present on both chromosomes.